Welcome back to another episode of the Obscure Arc. My name is Emre, and I'm here with my regular co-host, Jared. One day he'll become a unregular, I guess.
One day I'll just refuse to do the podcast.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, we're here with another episode of our lovely show, and this time it's going to be a little bit different. We did mention on the last episode we released that we're going through a little bit of a format change, nothing crazy. And we're still going to be doing the regular like forced watches and shared watch kind of thing, but we're actually adding like a shorter episode for what we watch out of the seasonals or what we watch in our free time, and kind of talk about those shows. It's not going to be like super long, but we felt like mentioning those stuff and also giving ourselves a room to watch stuff that we want to watch just because it looks interesting helps us continue doing this show.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this on the previous episode, but it's more just like we want slightly more free time just in our lives, but also to watch more anime. I mean, It was basically like really difficult to get down like even 25 to 30 episodes of anime a month, and that's like a low end month for us to get like that much anime done in a month.
Yeah.
And then watch time to watch seasonals. And also just like the big thing was like, the guilt of I can't watch a seasonal because I got to watch the thing for the show. So it's just more free time.
It relieves that portion, obviously. And then with this change, like we mentioned previously, again, we're going to start releasing 2 episodes a month, basically, instead of 3. But yeah, we ended up deciding it's not the biggest shift, and I feel like it is going to help the quality, help our working process, thus hopefully be more sustainable for us in the long run.
I think this also brings back a little bit of excitement because like it used to be like before Emre and I started the podcast, we talk about anime that the other person hadn't seen before, and it was kind of like, oh, like I haven't seen it, like give me a sell, or like what is it, and like or just in general what we've been looking at, even if it's not like amazing.
Yeah,
I think it's always just been like now that we kind of see all the same shows, we're kind of in a very repetitive rhythm and less freedom. So I'm very excited to talk about some of the shows I saw this past month. To be fair, I've been quite busy, and also this show, due to how we're recording it, is like less free time than typical, and the next month is going to also be very busy. But eventually I'm going to get a lot more free time and maybe even get like some of the really long shows out of the way. Like I eventually plan on doing like finishing My Hero and shit like that, and I can get through those shows very quickly. But I'm excited to talk about the stuff that I feel like when we watch shows for the podcast, we get them from a very holistic perspective. We talk about it from like, as many angles as possible.
Yeah.
Here, it's a lot more raw. We're not doing a ton of research. We're not, these shows are incomplete. It's going to be a lot more about how we talk about anime on a day-to-day basis rather than how we talk about anime in like we're trying
analytical,
to be analytical. We're trying to be more professional. We're trying to be very considerate and trying to like all these things. Like where this is like, I can just say my raw opinion and be like, I know I don't maybe fully believe that, but it is what I think.
Yeah, it's much more from like I enjoy this because of this reason, and like basically, being content with that type of approach. Then okay, these are the production values, and like this is what they did with the sound. Like don't get us wrong, we do care about that stuff on our own personal time watching shows as well, but obviously we're not trying to find as much of a balance and like pay as intense of an attention to every little detail so we can, break every small thing to the listeners.
I just don't want to do that for every show. Like if I watch a 7 out of 10 romance, it's not that important. Like, it's like, it was all right passing the time, or like, I thought it was better than it was, or, all that shit. Anyways, I'm very excited to talk about this show because I know my opinions. Like, I feel like on this podcast, we've always hinted about like, oh, Jared has very strong opinions, but I don't think I've ever been like that extreme except for in like specifically Dororo and Angel's Egg. But this one's going to be interesting because like people like who know me personally have heard me talk about Frieren and Dan, shows that I actually do like, but talk about them in very extreme ways. And so this will be a lovely example of this where I watch
sometimes in bipolar ways too, just to put
just
it there.
fucking hint at something. But I watched Witch Hat Atelier this month, which is probably the biggest show of spring. I mean, you could argue like Demons of the Shadow Realm or something, but like this is like one of, if not the most popular shows in spring. A show that we probably would never talk about in the podcast, which I think this episode, or like, you know, this specific episode format is going to be great, is where we talk about shows that we would never talk about in an analytical sense, just because they're either too popular or like probably not that great to dig into or all these things. I enjoyed it. I didn't enjoy it as much as everyone else. I kind of get into why, but I was like, I'm not a big fantasy person. I think I've been pretty open about this. And I think that the fantasy found family type shit has been done a fuckload in both anime and like other mediums. So it's really hard to sell me on this. And I don't think Witch Hat Atelier really sold me on this. I know you mentioned that you were really curious about this.
Yeah, I was, because, you know, I do read quite a bit of manga as well. And to be honest, like, this is a manga that I've seen in the bookshops for.
Oh yeah, it's a really popular manga.
Yeah, for like a really decent amount of time, and like the art looks fine, and like not fine. The art looks good in my opinion. At least like for the cover arts and all that stuff, and like, you know, on the side conversation, I always keep hearing like relatively positive stuff about the press medium of this show. So, you know, it was always lingering in my head, like, oh yeah, when the anime comes out, you know, I'll probably watch it, like take a dip at it, you know, see how good it is, which I haven't done. So I'm kind of curious, what's your general take, and like, you know, diving into that type of details, whether like, does it serve well what it's trying to serve, you know,
so
things like that.
A lot of fantasy is like either about found family or way too much lore. Like a lot of it is. And so this one's the one about found family. I can give an example of like Frieren is also found family. It's about memories, but also like one of the main things is found family. Ancient Magus Bride, which I'll talk about a bit more, is very found family. Like there's a ton of shows that are either found family, power fantasy, or like big lore, just world shit. And I think that Witch Hat Atelier's world, and it's like the way it uses magic is basically like they draw seals, and like basically everyone can use magic. You just need a special ink and drawing seals. Like that's the whole premise. And like the reason why people don't know about witches is because they've erased everyone's memories. Like that's not a spoiler. This is told in episode 1. And it's kind of like the danger of magic and great power. And there's like probably some larger analogy about war later on, but it's not been explored just yet. But it's like humans are a damned species. Like, you know, very classic, like, you know, talking about magic and all that type of stuff. And I think the big thing about why I knew people would like the show is because it is like cute girls kind of having a honest coming of age. Like there's a very good honest coming of age story in Witch Hat Atelier. And the best part of the show is that these are characters that, like, you know, the main characters, Coco, Aight, Tetia, and Rise, like, you know, they're all basically the apprentices of Kifri. All of them like are like, you know, rough characters. They like, you know, even though they seem very nice and young, they like, you know, brush up against each other. They're not exactly like perfectly, you know, nice to each other. And there's like, especially Aight, like Aight really pushes Coco as a person and challenges her like worldview. And I think I really appreciate how these characters force each other to grow and kind of like there's even a moment where it's like a character that seems really nice, Tetia, kind of makes Coco feel incredibly guilty and like feel terrible, even though she doesn't say anything. Okay. Like I think they really challenge each other as characters and allow for a great coming of age story to happen. The problem is that there's a second story going on at the exact same time that is very much like fantasy. We need an antagonist. Oh, there's not only the pointed hats. There's the I can't remember what the fuck they're called. There's like it's like whatever caps, fucking whatever. Basically the evil group that does the evil caps thing. It's like hooded caps or whatever the fuck. Editor Jared will include it. But yeah, it's like, is it brimmed cap? Brim caps. That's what it is. It's the brimmed caps. And it's like, ooh, they're so evil and mysterious and all this shit. And it's just like, it doesn't really play that well because the main thing is it's like Coco's basically Sasuke Uchiha, which like, I know it sounds ridiculous. Like if you have no context of the show, like this young small girl looks like Sasuke Uchiha, but like literally like this group is like feeding her. Like this is gonna be light spoilers, but like if you watch like the first 5 episodes of the show, like it literally happens within the first like 3 to 5 episodes of the show. But they're like trying to make her more powerful and do all these things, and she's this special person despite never using magic before. It's like very like of course it had to be this way because it's a fucking fantasy show, and I really don't like it. Does not mesh well with the coming of age, and I think that is the biggest part of the show that suffers.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that. Like, oftentimes, we do end up seeing like in several different anime shows that like when they try to basically bring together two like different premises or like ideas, it can't. It's not unfortunately usually the best um, outcome. But how, like in terms of the story, does not work when you basically dissect them into their own regions. How does that serve throughout the show for you? Like,
So the problem is that like I think the editor, like I think what happened was this was a coming of age story that was going to be cute and was going to be more like slice of life. Every episode is about. This is again a complete assumption that Coco is like exploring and learning about the magical world, and then an editor probably told her, "Why is this a magical world if there's no fighting?" And like using powers and doing cool things and like big things that we can animate, like if it becomes an anime. And then they took that note and then had to really flesh out this longer antagonistic story of these characters that are like pushing Coco from an like antagonistic standpoint, and it just doesn't make sense as to why I should care.
gotcha.
That's the big thing. Is it's like the biggest connection you have is Kifri, who like has very clear basic trauma related to like, oh, these people probably wronged me or did something bad. Like I don't care. Like, that's the thing. I don't care about any of it. I care about Coco and her development. Like, I think I legitimately care about Coco as a character, but I don't care about the bigger world. I don't think there's anything very interesting or beautiful about it. Because when I compare this to Ancient Magus Bride, like, Ancient Magus Bride is like, in its first 12 episodes, is like a 9 out of 10. It's an incredibly beautiful world. It's super focused on Chisei. It's super focused on kind of Chisei's confusion and where she belongs in her own self-hate and all these things that kind of, bring her into the magical world and find acceptance. Whereas the difference between that in the foundation that is in Witch Hat Atelier is Witch Hat Atelier is like splitting its time, and it's like Ancient Magus Bride splits its time like between Act 1 of Ancient Magus is just the coming of age, and then Act 2 is like antagonism. Whereas this is like already by Act 1 it's splitting between the two. And so it kind of feels worse in that regard, because I think in general, like the most fantasy antagonists aren't that interesting. They're overly like philosophical. They don't get into specifics. It's very boring. And that's really what I don't enjoy about it. And I think Kifuri, despite having a very cool design, like, fucking, Gojo from Jujutsu Kaisen shit, like, he's a really boring character, like a really boring character, because he's just like, oh, I care about these girls, but I want revenge, grr. Like, that's literally it. Like, he's just like an aura farmer. And it's a shame that he's the person that is trying to lead these girls, because I don't think that he provides a lot to the story.
Okay. So you mentioned you don't care a lot for the world and all that stuff. Do you think that would, like, you would have cared more if, let's say, this was not like a 13 but like 24 episode season, and there was more time for the same premise, but like it was just time spent better and longer in a sense?
So here's the thing. When I compare this to, it's impossible for me to not compare this to Ancient Magus, because it's literally like two girls who have like basically been abandoned that then get found, and like, it's a very similar story.
Yeah.
Ancient Magus connects like Chisei to the magical world with like side stories of like she gets a familiar, and or like, she gets her wand and it involves her like, taking a dragon on its last flight. And it's a very beautiful like exploration of like the magical feelings of like other parts of this world that exist that we as humans can connect to. Whereas this is solely focused on Coco and the Atelier. It does not ever leave that world, and things come to that.
Gotcha.
And so when that part isn't working, it really doesn't work. Whereas with Chisei, it feels like she's reaching out and doing a lot of different things in Ancient Magus, which, again, I think part of it is that then the show becomes very one-dimensional later on, because it can only do stuff based off Chisei, whereas this show can at least be based off 4 characters. But I don't know. The biggest thing is that I don't care about the world, because it's just like it looks cool, but there's no emotional attachment to the world.
So
like
it's almost like, from what you're saying, it almost feels like there's no reach out to the world from the character's perspective, and it's more so like the world sometimes throws itself to them.
Yeah, it sometimes gets in the, like, jumps in, and it's like very generic.
But like till that point, since she does not engage with what's going around her other than the hats, like it does not necessarily feel well, like established, or like, something that you can connect
I mean, you see like cool creatures occasionally. There's like magic politics. It's kind of like, okay, and I think, so the show was like rated like an 8.7, 8.8, and then it dips down to like an 8.5 on Mal because it ends on a cliffhanger. I would say that people still probably in their head feel it like it's 8.7 besides it ending on like a hard cliffhanger.
Yeah.
And I will say Bugs Films did a really great job in terms of, I think the animation and art is phenomenal. I think the music is phenomenal. I think everything about the actual standalone is good. This show was delayed by a year. Like this was supposed to come out last year. In all likelihood, they've not announced a release date for season 2. It's definitely in production, even though they haven't officially announced it. But this will probably take another year and a half to come out.
Okay.
And it's really hard to give a shit about the long-term development of this show because I kind of already know what's going to happen. It's the part. It's like, there's either going to be aggressive twists and turns,
Yeah.
just because it's like antagonism, we need to keep it spicy, or it's going to be a coming of age story that is going to feel probably okay, but not be. It's not. You're never going to be able to fully have a coming of age story with how the world is set up. Like the world is actively set up that whenever Coco is growing, she has to come up against antagonism. That has been what the show has like shown so far, besides in like one thing. Like Coco will be doing something and then antagonism happens. Okay. And I think that part is very annoying to me because I'm like, coming of age is inherently based off of you versus society. It is not based off you versus antagonistic force. Like that is kind of the point. And so I really get annoyed.
Like, at best, the society is the antagonistic force.
Yeah, that's the point. It's like it's you versus the world and not versus like something specific. And I kind of hate when shows try to do it in a way that is you versus antagonism and that makes a character grow. I'm fine with it here and there, but it's like it seems like the show is going to do it often and it makes it not great. Okay. Again, show looks great, sounds great, does a lot of things great, but like overall as like you can really tell like in the narrative like foundation there is not a lot to stake foothold into because not a lot has happened in 12 episodes. Like we've gone through like the first like really basic arcs and it like rushes through like, I don't know. It's really unsatisfying everything that's happened so far besides the stuff specifically with Coco, Agate, and a little bit of Tetsuya. But really it's just like Coco and Agate challenge each other and that's great. I think every other interaction, and there's like the one boy who's like, who's colorblind, I think he's an interesting character. But beyond that, I think, there is like as a fantasy show, you'd be shocked how underwhelming the world is. And I think that's crazy to me.
Do you think that, and this is more like, this is arguably less about the show and like kind of me being curious in general approach if someone were to do something like this, but do you think it would be better if they like kind of established and like wrapped up the story of coming of age and then maybe like going into a
like a Naruto and a Shippuden type situation?
Exactly.
It honestly would be close because like Naruto,
yeah.
for people who like haven't seen Naruto like part 1 is like the Akatsuki is not really involved. Like there's no like there are like basically villains in each arc, but and like or like antagonistic forces in each arc, but it's not like an overarching thing.
No,
like there's things at play.
It's just the drive. It's just to put their goal.
But you don't
like,
feel it is the point.
Exactly.
In Shippuden, it's literally just like antagonism is happening the whole time. There's a world that it is better doing that format. I think that the big thing for me is that like Coco as a character is like not developed at all, right? Like I think it's like she's someone who lost her mother. She's someone who doesn't have a place in the world. She needs a lot of work to really define who she is personality-wise. And like she has this like whole thing where it's like, kindness and blah, blah. This is really generic. Like I think there's not a lot of, I like what is written about her, but there's not a lot that's unique and not a ton of texture to her. I think she's someone who is very bland so that the audience can see through her lens more easily. But I think ultimately that makes me not care about her more because I'm like, okay, why her over everyone else? Whereas Chise is someone who like doesn't have a lot of personality, but she has a lot of like, not personality, but like her behavior is very weird. Like Chise is very reserved, like an Ancient Magus. She's also very scared of the world. That's like a big thing. Chise is horrified of the world, and I think seeing her learn to love the world is like a big part of why people like Ancient Magus, is because she learns to love the magic world, see acceptance, and not hate herself. Because like there's like. You can see her backstory in her behaviors without the backstory being explained. And then it gets explicitly explained, which is kind of annoying. But the thing with Coco is she's like such a blank slate of just like, I'm just kindness. And I kind of feel like I don't care when that's the only thing. Whereas I think Chise has a bit more texture to her overall. And I think that's what makes me not care about Coco. Whereas like, if we're comparing it to even like Naruto has texture to him, even if I don't like think that, I think it's a bit generic and a bit, a bit overplayed with like the trauma of like, I lost everything. I'm a complete outside. Like it's a bit overplayed, but I think there's more texture to Naruto. Whereas Coco,
Naruto is the one that's overplayed.
Well, I think the biggest thing is
No,
that
I'm just kidding,
so both Chise and Coco are reactionary characters, but I think the reactions that Chise has are interesting because it makes us want to know more about her, whereas Coco are almost like our own reaction, and it's kind of just like mirroring us, and it's like that's great, whatever. Like I don't really care. So I think that part of it makes it so that the world view feels very bland. And I think that like a lot of the characters in the show try to be very flat so that the world itself can speak for itself, but then the world itself is not that interesting. So it's like there's a whole lot of like layered issues in the foundation that like decisions basically weren't made, and therefore it looks pretty. There are cool ideas, but ultimately doesn't really stand on something that makes it feel very, oh, this is just a coming of age, found family type thing that will feel nice, but not have anything distinct about it. Like I don't like how Ancient Magus Bride's like direction it goes into, primarily because I don't like the bride part of Ancient Magus Bride. But the cool thing about Ancient Magus Bride is that it does stand on a very specific topic related to coming of age and related to the magic world and kind of all these things. All that to say is that this is not the best show even this year with Witch in its name. Which, to be fair, both Witch Hat Atelier and Journal with Witch don't have Mahotsukai in it. Like, I think Witch Hat Atelier is like pointy hat.
Majo.
Yeah, like they don't have a word that means like, magical user in it. I think Witch Hat Atelier is called like Pointy Hat Atelier, more literally, and Journal with Witch is more like Foreign Country Diary. Regardless, I just think this show doesn't have a lot going on, and it's going to find its way to move the plot forward via like dumb twists and turns. Like it's a show that is going to be built on twists and turns rather than honest character or interesting world movements or like larger themes. It's going to be, I'm interested because I think this is I didn't see that coming type thing, which is like, to be fair, you can say that's kind of what happens in later Shippuden. Like later Shippuden is kind of like twists and turns of he did what, which is like, whatever.
Yeah, I get you. I'm kind of curious before we wrap this portion, but like when you compare it, because like the settings are similar, they touch similar nuances and like topics. How do you compare this to Frieren? Like,
Yeah, so the thing with Frieren is the foundation's a lot better in Frieren. My problem with Frieren itself is that it doesn't make good progress. If you ask me, I think the first 8 to 10 episodes of Frieren are phenomenal.
Okay.
I think the problem with Frieren is it doesn't make progress from episode 10 to episode like 28. And I think my big thing is like, it is premised on Frieren, like, this is a show that's going to be inherently about grief, because why did Frieren cry at the beginning of Frieren? Like, why did she cry? Like, there's a whole reason. And it's also about memories and all these things, and that's consistently explored on an episode to episode basis. The goal of the show is being achieved. Whereas I think even in Witch Hat Atelier, I don't think that's being achieved episode to episode. I think in some episode is, but I don't think every episode is, because it's constantly getting interfered with antagonism. Like, Frieren, every episode is doing what it's supposed to. It's just not progressing an overall narrative, which I think is the bigger problem, because it is set up to do a bigger narrative. Like, I don't want anyone to like pretend it's not. Again, if someone can explain to me, well, why did she cry? Well, why are they going to the heaven place, or like the Oriole, like why are they going there? If you can explain that without involving a larger narrative, then great. But it, from what I'm aware of, is just a larger narrative that is going to involve this, even if it doesn't want to. It did choose to do that from a structural standpoint. Like, a big thing that I'm looking at when I watch the first 10 to 12 episodes of a show is the structure going to make sense for the further story? And like Frieren, it seemed like it was going that way, and it didn't. Whereas within Witch Hat Atelier, I can already tell within the first 10 to 12, it's like, oh, you don't know what you want. Like, it's pretty clear that the show doesn't know what it wants because it's fighting over two different things. Whereas Frieren just didn't meet its goal, right? Like, I think it's still trying, but it's not meeting its goal. Whereas this is just like, it has no clue. Or not no clue, but it is fighting itself, which I think is a big, big problem.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. That was the answer I was basically looking for, because I'm yet to watch either.
You would like Frieren more, because I think Frieren is a better quality show overall, but you might like the magic system in the show a lot, because I think it's interesting.
Okay.
And they explore it in interesting ways.
I am a sucker for like interesting, versions of magic systems.
Yeah, the magic systems are cool with how they use it, but they don't show magic in the world itself, or the magic of the world that well. I think that's
once the
weakness.
explanation portion passes on, like, you're not necessarily.
Yeah, the magic in Frieren's really bland. Like, to be fair, like magic in Frieren's really bland.
Gotcha.
Not like horribly bland. Like, I still like it, everyone, and I like the monsters and all that shit. But it's not like there's no details in it. It's just kind of like you accept it for what it is.
Okay, I see that. Well, with that, I'll probably end up watching both sooner than later. And
You have time on Witch Hat Atelier, I'll say that much. You have time on that one.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe I'll wait for season 2 on that one. I'll probably jump on Frieren more than like sooner than later. Just because I've been curious about that show for a while too. And whether it's good or bad, I've been hearing it from a lot of people.
I'm probably the only Frieren hater that you'll know. And it's not I still
You
like
don't
Frieren.
necessarily you don't necessarily talk about it like it's like as hateful as you do for some other shows
I just think
that I know.
I think
so-
that people aren't properly analytical of Frieren. That's my only thing. I think
Yeah.
I'm trying to force a perspective onto people because I think that they're biased towards it, or they have a
like you're on the side where like you think it's a bit oversold or like
yeah.
overrated, which I can see that like with a lot of popular shows, quote unquote, like they tend to be like pushed towards a certain bias by the general media or mass media. And I do think probably like a lot of other popular shows, Frieren is a victim of
Yeah.
that too. So
Yeah, the big thing with anime in the popular medium is that people have low expectations of anime, and so when an anime is even decent, they really like, oh my god, this is incredible,
Yeah.
and I'm just kind of like, right. Anyways,
and it's also like when we talk about seasonals and stuff, we gotta keep in mind that a lot of anime in general, especially like seasonal stuff, like anime became a main popular culture within this past like 5 years maybe.
there was a push in like 2015 with like the My Hero Attack on
Yeah.
Titan, but like really after COVID in 2020,
Exactly.
was there a ginormous like holy fuck like maybe like 3 out of 10, like it used to be like 1 out of 10 people
Yeah,
anime watch
exactly.
it, now it's like 3 out of 10 people.
Yeah. Like people were shoved in their houses and they were like, well, there's this thing called anime.
Yeah.
Let me take a look. And now it's on every major
Because every
platform,
single
you know.
fucking like union WGA writer show like was on hiatus or like
Yeah.
got canceled or something, and then it's like, geez, oh, I guess they're still doing stuff in Japan, or there's a big backlog from Japan, let's just go look at
Exactly.
that.
So because of that, obviously, like we see in a lot of other popular cultures, or participants of pop culture, basically, there are hypes around certain things.
I mean, some people are also just excited to experience conventions for the first time, right? Like I
Yep.
think like the anime scream, like all these things are like cute romance or like nostalgia that anime does very well. Like the first time you experience something like that, it does feel very special, and then when you see
does,
it for
yeah.
the 50th time, it does feel less special. So there's always that bias of like the difference between what is my first anime versus what is
That's
not my
what
first.
I was gonna say. There's always gonna be a difference, when you talk about like something being someone's or at least one of their very first shows they watched or something. Like even to this day, there's a reason why, regardless of its intricacies, Sword Art Online is being talked about
Yeah.
because it's like whether we like it or not, including myself, it's one of the very first animes, if not the very first anime for a lot of people that they've watched in that genre. And that, the more you watch it, you acknowledge the flows, or some people don't, but you acknowledge the flows of the show, but it still holds a special spot in your mind. So
Yeah, I get that. I think the difference between myself
it's
and
for you, like, it's like Sasuke for you.
yeah,
you
no,
know,
but my
like-
point is like the difference between like the person who's watched 50 animes and the person that watched one is that the person who watched 50 at least has the choice to step back and not understand the
Yeah.
scope of everything, whereas the person who's watched only one anime doesn't understand the scope of the space and the tropes and kind of how this might be a bit more stereotypical or like the
Yeah,
cliches.
they're just
and all this stuff.
jumping on the train, basically.
Yeah, I think it is a bit harder to have the full context of a show when you are not as aware of what is like already present in the space. Where it's like, yes, this show is copying like a Full Metal, or yes, this show is copying this, or all that stuff. Not that it's necessarily a bad thing, not that the show can't be impactful, but I do think it's harder to have an objective opinion the less information you have.
Well, yeah,
of
of
stuff in
course.
this
Yeah,
space.
that's inevitable. Less
Yeah.
data, less proper outcome.
Which is why
yeah.
it's like when I have this podcast with other people, I always tell people like, yeah, I'm not expecting you to share my opinion because I don't think your opinion is going to be the same as mine because you just don't have either the same context or the same biases or all these things. I'm like, that's fine. But I think the awareness of I've seen maybe 10 anime, that's going to shape my opinion on like what I like. Where it's like, a big thing, like, just a small ramble is like why people like Ghibli so much. Ghibli's not the only thing that does Ghibli.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of anime that's like, are those anime often inspired by Ghibli? Yes. But I'm saying like Ghibli's not the absolute pinnacle on everything, but some people treat it
Yeah.
like that because the people who've seen Ghibli have only seen Ghibli. And I think that's definitely a big
Like,
bias towards
you're
it.
pulling from a much more limited source of pool, or pool of source.
Yeah, I just think that people, when you like, people treat like anime movies as only Ghibli or like, all this. I think there's a lot of problems with like, who's watching what and recognizing biases. It's like people don't understand like opinions and like surveys and stuff like that. You would want a more generic pool or also understand like what all that stuff is, but people don't care. And
Yeah.
people struggle to do things objectively. And ultimately, I think the big problem with like a lot of seasonal and conversations around seasonal is it's a lot of people who just are loud. That's always what I've been. I'm not going to be in that conversation. Like, if you want to come to me for my opinion, that's great.
But that is unfortunately a really good portion of popular culture in general,
Yeah,
like
so-
loudness.
yeah, I always tell people like the biggest thing is just like just be mindful of like trust yourself a bit and take some time with the medium rather than like don't watch mediums, like don't watch anime or like any show for the sake of solely trying to connect with others. Like it can be part of it.
FOMO,
It can be
basically.
it can be part of it. Don't get me wrong, it's allowed to be part of it. But if that's your primary reason, you are coming in it with a skewed perspective. And I think that will inherently
affect your
how
judgment,
you
yeah.
process and analyze shows. And I think again, it can be part of it. I dislike when it is your primary focus because you're not exploring that medium for your or like that piece of media for your own reason. And I think that inherently is unfair to the media.
Yeah, actually, that's a really good point. Really good thing you pointed out. Like, I do see a great difference in people when they talk about shows where like a group or a person starts it for FOMO or for like being to be able to participate in like social conversations or like environments and stuff like that, and when the person who's talking about a show like started watching that for their own interest regardless of like the this conversations happening around them, I feel like from the get-go, even if it's their first shows, let's say like two people watch the same show for the first time, one starts because of like social interactions and like their fan group is interested and they're like, yeah, I want to jump into this and like kind of join the conversation as well, and the other one just picks it up uh like on their own time, stuff like that. Like even that changes the scope
Oh yeah,
by a mile. Like,
there's a whole thing about circle jerk and like FOMO and like all this stuff that's related to like
Yeah.
how we consume media and perspective.
Yeah.
And that's under researched in academia because it doesn't matter to academics because for some reason they think that all views are objective. But it's something that I've been deeply interested in of like, even how you watch the media is like, do you watch it on your phone? Do you watch it on like a big screen at home? Like there's a bunch of things related to that where it's like people don't want to take that part of their experience into quote unquote their like
consideration,
they're like
I guess,
viewpoints
yeah.
because they believe that they trust themselves to be objective, which I inherently do not trust myself as objective, which I think a lot of people don't understand. Like that's an okay thing. That's actually a good thing to not trust yourself because you're probably not objective, and that's fine. You're not supposed to be. But too many people trust themselves too heavily that they don't fully understand the scope of what they're participating in. All this to say, there's a long rant about seasonals.
Yeah, but like I feel like this was a kind of needed, kind of interesting conversation to have. That's why I kind of imposed the question to begin with. But yeah, with all this philosophical end of the conversation,
I will say, speaking of FOMO, I do want to watch You and I Are Polar Opposites. It's been on my list. I've just been
Yeah.
busy, and I've been very interested in it as romance. I will say I do always fear the first romance. Like anytime a romance hits mainstream, I'm always worried I'm getting too much of the opinion of this is my first romance show. So
Yeah.
I'm curious as to someone who is still relatively new to romance but has experienced a lot more than probably your average viewer.
Yeah.
What your thoughts on how this show plays? Because a big thing that I've heard from my like outside
Yeah.
viewpoint is that, oh, they start the romance so early, it's so great. And I'm like, there's two camps that exist in this world. Like, if we divide humanity with a knife, there's the sides who like slow burns and the side who wants them to get together immediately. I like both. But people treat the one or the other like it's a negative. And I think that's just wrong.
Yeah.
But so I'm interested because this is one that does start out faster, like closer to like a Horimiya. And I'm curious, does that actually play well to you, or does it feel like people are praising it because of that too much?
Again, with the conversation we just had, I feel like it might go to the trajectory of being overhyped for various reasons. And I will touch those in a minute here. But to talk about like a general like aspect of the show, I do like it a lot. I feel like people liking it and enjoying it is on that end like a fair view of the show. I did not realize this show was as popular as it was when I like started watching it, as well as I did not know the mangaka or the author also released a second show, which I'm kind of interested in that too, and probably end up watching
They're
it.
making bank right now. They're making
Yeah,
bank.
that's like, hey,
Well,
props to you.
no,
That's
to
crazy
be clear,
success.
what is
Go for
fucking
it. Like,
crazy about the author, which I can't remember their name, Jared will put it, Jared, editor Jared will include on screen right now. They released Ramparts of Ice and You and I Are Polar Opposites, same season. They both get a season 2 or more like a second cur within
Yeah.
the same year. Like that's fucking insane to have two shows doing well within the same genre. You're like competing with yourself. Like that's fucking crazy.
that is crazy. Yeah. Just to save editor Jared like work, it's Kocha Agasawa is the original creator. And then the director for this show, like You and I Are Polar Opposites specifically, it's Takakazu Nagatomo.
Who is the studio that did this?
Studio.
I've heard no one talk to me about the animation of it, so I just know it's a lot of really bright colors.
Is it a Netflix original?
No, I doubt. Not like no one sec, but like,
Let's see. Like, cause
well, it may be a Netflix original. That does not mean the studio did it.
yeah, probably. Not
Like, 'cause Netflix does not have an animation studio.
animation studio. That's true. Yeah.
Ba-ba-ba. It is
Let's
Lapin Track, which I don't know that well. Have they done
Okay.
anything important? Not really. Shushomin. Oh, they did so there's what they did Watakoi fucking, and they also did this Shoshumin is trying to be normal, I think that's what it's called. Yeah, Shoshin had become ordinary. I've heard decent things about that, as well as, is it only the second season of Watakoi? Yeah.
Okay.
Relatively new. Oh, they did the recycle of Penguin Drum too. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So they did. Yeah. Okay. They do kind of have some cool shows. They're definitely on the newer end, like you just said.
Slice of lifey though. Slice of lifey
Yeah.
studio.
A lot of slice of love. Yeah. Like Shoshiman series, they did that.
Yeah.
I know this show right now. I'm seeing the only Japanese title.
Oh, they did Sarazanmai. So this
Youth is difficult to love. Is cold apparently. That's the name, and I know like a decent amount of people liked that show too. So I guess and that's a romance one,
yeah.
by the way.
And they also did the Fujimoto one, the Tatsuki Fujimoto like 17 through 26 shit, as well as also Sarazanmai, which is another Ikuhara work. So they've done a very small amount, but relatively important shows considering they're new.
And like they're obviously from the shows they're doing, getting like going strong with
they
the
have
romance.
connections.
Yeah.
This is not like a studio that started out like fresh and got some real garbage. Like they have connections in the industry. Anyways.
But yeah, so first thing first, in terms of MI team, like as early as you can for the relationship or like as slow burn as you can do. I'm neither, like yourself. I do enjoy both when it's done properly.
Yeah.
I feel like if it has a lot of problems for a slow burn, like the way they build the relationship dynamic and all that stuff, it gets a bit too tedious and like kind of hinders me to watch that whole thing. And when it's just like kind of a run and gun, like it's done deal, like boom, they're dating, and now we're just spending our time for nothing that entertaining, and it's just their kind of thing. It's also boring. Like
For me, I'm a little bit more team slow burn solely because people treat slow burn like it's a flaw, and I try to like advocate for that. But I really don't care either way.
I really don't think slow burn is a flaw. There are certain shows that feels like it's a flaw for that show.
Like I like Kaguya-sama and I like Horimiya, two shows that are very different.
Exactly.
So it's like in like Kaguya-sama, they get together like chapter 130. Like Horimiya, it's like chapter like fucking 15 or something, 20.
So with that though, I got into this show without any specific expectations. Like I said, I was not aware how popular it was to begin with, but I saw the trailer, seemed interesting, seemed fun. I do um, like opposite characters, like personality characters, a lot.
I think it's kind of gimmicky to me. That's
Yeah,
my thing. I think it's a little gimmicky.
it is most definitely gimmicky, but also like I do enjoy it. Like it's again, I feel like it has to be done. They can't be just like polar opposites just for the sake of being polar opposites. I feel like both character still within their own personalities need to have proper foundation, and like their type of character should make sense as its own person. Like and for this show, I feel like every character, including the side characters, kind of make sense as their own individuals, as teenagers going to high school. And in that regards, I actually do think it pays homage to how shows like Horimiya do storytelling. And that's actually what I wanted to mention when this show could be a bit overhyped. Um, I feel like we don't see this type of Horimiya type of storytelling and romance in a lot of mainstream shows.
Yeah. Would you say the show is more character focused or more relationship focused? That's like the thing that I'm curious about.
I'd say that's a really good question. I'd say it's more relationship focused than Horimiya, definitely.
Wait, really? Horimiya is like insanely relationship focused.
Um, I, I, I could kind of disagree with that because, like, it is really relationship focused, but like, it's also their own personal struggles through a relationship and what they find through it.
Yeah, but like we rarely see the character struggles through the context of another character and the relationship with them. Like we
That's
never
also
see
true,
Yuki's
yeah.
struggles without Ishikawa's kind of lens or someone else's lens or Hori's lens on her. Like it's always about how I'm seeing and perceiving her and like that shit. Like even like Shindo and like even that like all these side
It's always
characters.
through them, is what
Yeah,
you're
yes.
saying. Okay.
So it's like even though these are they are well thought out characters, but it is always through the context of my relationship with them and what I think about it. You know.
Okay, then if we're taking that approach, then I'd say this might, because with this show, there are like characters that definitely knows themselves from the get go with their flaws, and they kind of come in like they've, for whatever healthy or unhealthy reason, they've come in terms with the fact that they are the way they are. So I guess in that regards, less relationship focused, but then with each character, because like Horimiya, there are side characters in this show that, you know, have one way or shape or form of relationship with each other than the mains as well. They find like change to them, or they kind of find new resolutions about themselves. So it's, for some characters, it's less of like finding the flaw and then addressing, and it's more so they already know the flaw but they don't have a solution, or they don't realize there's a solution, and finding that through someone.
So my question related to the show is, what is like the level of subtlety to it? Because subtlety is like a really important thing for me, especially in the romance type thing, type genre for me. Because like one of the things, a reason why I didn't like Fragrant Flower as much as everyone else did was I almost thought it was too much into the subtlety, where these characters did not define themselves very well and like have texture and things that make them defined and like, you know, personable and what makes them them. And like I think the thing I love about Horimiya so much is that these are pretty well-defined characters, have certain things, but have details in them that are very interesting.
Yes.
And for me, with Polar Opposites, when I see it, I see the art style, I know nothing about it. I'm like, oh, this is gonna be in my face. This is gonna be not too much subtlety and kind of play loud.
So yes, I would kind of agree on that analysis throughout the art style. It certainly has much less intricacies and details to each character when you compare it to like Horimiya, or Your Fragrant Flowers.
I'm also even thinking like Bocchi, which I know is not romance, but like these are characters that look like, in a pretty well defined, that look louder than they are, but in reality have a lot of details to them. Like even like
So I'd say for you and I are polar opposites. You end up being in a middle ground because there's certain characters where like they have just one trope, and that one trope is like
Yeah.
they don't have a lot of like side things going for them. You don't see them having like a different thought process or like a different layer to their
And is there then
personality.
anything behind that trope? Because like sometimes I think I like about like for example like how Iura is in Horimiya. There's a reason why he's loud, or like I don't even need like a reason per se, but I like to be able to go behind the mask a little of what that trope
Yes.
is.
So with other characters that exists, which I start to like. So I don't know. I've just so everyone's aware, I'm yet to start season 2. As of right now, I think there's 3 episodes out there of season 2. And they might follow that path, but as of right now where I'm at, we definitely see there's more background stuff like history that led these characters to the point where they're at right now, but we're not necessarily diving in too deep to exactly know like what's up. Like really slight spoilers, and I'm not gonna even name drop these at this point, but we see some characters like having um like been bullied in like middle school.
Classic.
Yeah, like that's a classic trope.
Yeah.
Or some characters without even realizing just been in like popular like circles within their previous school environments, but they did not realize that's actually something they necessarily enjoy. Like it's just something they have been doing it because it's available, and they did not think through a lot of things, like stuff like that. Like there are characters like that, but then there's also characters like, yeah, they're just shy.
Okay.
And that's it. They're just shy, innately shy, and
Okay.
they struggle with being shy, and they try to overcome that. But
So
that's
there's
about it.
there's
Like,
favorites in the show.
yeah, most definitely, for sure. But regardless of that, I feel like it still does a pretty decent job with like giving us multiple characters with enough um background to them, which hopefully evolves into something even more. And like you already know, because I enjoyed Horimiya as much as I did, multiple characters having different type of relationships with each other, and not just as like two different couples, but like in between the couples, like in terms
Yeah,
of
yeah.
friendships and relationship they have with each other and the friend group. That type of dynamic most certainly exists in this show, and I enjoyed it a lot. I really did. Like it's much more lighter, more fluffy almost.
Yeah.
But it's a good element to the show.
I just think there's a fascinating microcosm that is happening with like people who watch You and I Are Polar Opposites versus people who watch Ramparts. You and I Are Polar Opposites much more popular than Ramparts of Ice, like insanely much more popular. Like it is like
Yeah.
it's not in the mainstream, but it's in the mainstream of anime. It's very close.
Yeah.
So it's not there yet, but it's very close.
I can see that happening because, especially for this show, it's much more like comedy as well.
Yeah.
From a lot of moments, and like there's, like you said, there's loud comedy too.
Yeah.
And that like applies to a bigger audience than like more niche.
And Ramparts of Ice, I have not seen a single episode. I've seen a trailer. It's like it wants to sit in the quiet a decent bit, and so I lean towards that. I won't lie. But at the same time, I think that the reason why is that solely because like by You and I Are Polar Opposites is that I'm interested to see what I think if I get to it next month. I probably won't of how it's going to compare to Ramparts of Ice, because I'm very like positive the next show I'm watching is Ramparts of Ice. I could be like uncertain, but
Yeah, I'll probably end up watching that one too, especially now that I've basically caught up with this one, because I do the idea of like watching two, funnily enough, opposite shows to each other as well in terms of what type of romance they are like, or the the subtleties they want to play at, like from the same author, is it like
it's a rarity.
yeah, it's a rarity and like intriguing within itself to me. So I'm definitely gonna watch Rampant of Ice for sure. But to kind of cut the chase, you and I are polar opposites. I really did enjoy it. I do not think it's as intricate and detailed and in certain moments as well thought as Horimiya, in terms of how the story is told and how characters engage with each other in every moment. There's certainly some like some things that are done for like easy way outs, or like, kind of maybe cut effort and post, or just,
Some assumptions.
stuff like that, some assumptions going on there. But it does not mean by any means that it's not entertaining. I would argue the exact opposite of that. It's really entertaining. It's a much lighter, to be honest. I feel like this is a much more like feel good show than Horimiya, in terms of how impact heavy the stories that are being told to us, in Horimiya. So yeah, it's a pleasantly surprising seasonal romance show, which we're getting a decent amount of those.
This is 2026 is the year of romance.
Yeah.
There's a ton of romance already coming out and planned to come out, and it's insane. To keep going on the train of romance, this was not a seasonal. This was something I did in my own time. I read the manhwa or webtoon Seasons of Blossom. I have finished Season of Blossoms. I started Seasons of Lovesome, which is like the no one asked for its sequel. It's still pretty good, but like, Seasons of Blossom stands alone, like very clearly. Seasons of Lovesome kind of jumps afterwards and still works with the same characters, but is not necessarily part of the same story. I was a big fan of Seasons of Blossom, like when I was about halfway through it, and then I think there's about a 120 chapter manhwa. It's, tries to be very clean of 30 chapters for each, there's 4 seasons because Seasons of Blossoms, it's got spring, summer, winter, or spring, summer, fall, winter, like the whole thing. It has really honest character writing, and I think that one of the things you can tell, you really see this in anything that is done, which is a lot of anime that is from manga or like manhwa, that this show was influenced by weekly writing. Like, it was very clearly influenced by, they were getting feedback from the audience directly, and they shifted their writing towards that. So, complete content warning, like, while this is a, like, romance story, it's, like, not really romance, it's more coming of age, and it also heavily, and I do mean heavily, deals with teen suicide, like, on-screen teen suicide. And so, if that's something that disturbs you, there is no way to read this without it disturbing you. Like, it comes from it at every single angle. It is not comfortable to watch if you or read if you're not used to it.
But it's also an inevitable reality of the world we live in. So if you can sit through it, I guess through
I mean,
it.
I think everyone's at different stages with how they're able to deal with it or whatnot. Like, I get it. So I just want to make it clear that if you're not comfortable with that, it's like the first 30 chapters are clean. After that, or like mostly clean. After that, it's like, it's uncomfortable if you're very familiar with it and have not processed it. Like, I wouldn't blame someone. Like, I've seen teen suicide depicted, like, in something like, for example, like Persona 5, which is like super basic, happens in like really early on.
Yeah.
It's like relatively like not that intimate related to it.
Yeah, it's much more light.
You're kind of watching it happen. Yeah. This is really intimate, gets into the details. It can trigger you. I think this very, very clearly can trigger you. Okay. So I get why people wouldn't. I really enjoyed how honest the characters are in this. So on the front, like, cover of it, there's the character like Jin Young. He seems like he's the main character. He's not the main character. Jin Young, the black-haired boy, is not the main character. It is Jae-min Lee. He is a beautiful boy. I love everything he does in the story. He is, he's a really well thought out character of, like, he's supposed to be like, he kind of is played as like the rival boy at first, of like, oh no, he's the pretty guy that is taking away the love interest from like, the nerdy guy. But in reality, he is someone who is just like trying to find his place in the world. He's very hurt. Like, he has a lot of very authentic reactions to things, and his place in the world makes sense. Like, I think the biggest thing about why Seasons of Blossom work is that all of their characters are situated in a way where their place in the world makes sense, and how they react is very authentic to how someone positioned like that would be. And like, I think that exploration of their reactions and their relationships is very interesting, because I think these characters are put through, like, unfortunately, like typical, like, high school drama type stuff, and seeing how they react and grow and what they care about is cool. Like I think a lot of what makes this show or this manhwa so good is that you can get very invested in the characters. Like even more so than a show like it is less about relationships, more about characters in this. It's really about like how these characters get into like the quiet moments in their feelings. Like when Jaemin's a character who's like surrounded by a lot of popular kids.
Yeah.
And when you get the quiet moments, you really feel it because of that.
It feels like you most certainly get the chance to look what we as people went through in high school or going through right now through a different window via this show.
It's super, like, when you step into the character's shoes, you're really in them. And I think that's something I really value and care about when it's done well. Like, I think the way it takes itself behind the character's perspective and how they feel and react to the world and how it changes that perspective, like certain things brush up against you harder than it would seem like, you know. I think it does a great job of that, where it's not a very cinematic manhwa, I guess is a weird way to frame it, but it is a very personable one. And I think for the sake of a coming of age story, it makes a lot of sense. I also want to say that this is, because it's Korean, there are certain like differences you'll notice culturally, not like a ton, like, you know, but I think kind of you'll notice like how, like, you know, Asian household and stress over school, ooh, but there are different notes that are played upon it because it is like Korean households, like Korean.
Like for people who are not necessarily super familiar with like Korean medium, I guess, like there will be differences in like schools, social structures as well. That like you'll see it when you get into it. It's really like quite different than what you get at a like classic Japanese, you know, standard social structure at a school. And then obviously I feel like usually bullying is much more intense.
I think a big thing is that even more so than Japanese culture, like the difference between like to specifically use like senpai and like kohai, or like, you know, sunbae and hobae. Like that's more intense in Korean culture. And it's like almost, you do it out of courtesy in Japan. In Korea, it's like demanded to some extent. Like, you know, everyone's a bit different. It's almost
like hierarchical order.
Yeah, it's a bit harsher than that.
And it's their military culture too, right?
Yeah, you feel it more because of that. I think because kind of how your place in the world even matters more so. Like how your position per se matters slightly more, or at least more intensely in a different way in Korea.
Yeah, that's, I totally agree. And, you know, this might sound kind of alienating to some listeners. Like literally, if you read like a few manhwas or like things like Korean shows and stuff like that, and kind of get a feel for like their social structure and like companies, schools, army, all that stuff, like it's really on the nose. It's not that hard to realize that they're a bit more intense, weirdly enough. So yeah,
I will say one of the drawbacks that, if you don't like melodrama, like there are some things that will happen in this show that feels like, oh, I guess that just had to happen. Like the progress is good, but like sometimes what exactly happens is a bit aggressive of like, oh, there's conflict to have conflict.
It's a bit like selling it.
Yeah, especially in season 3 and 4. Like it really is like, I feel like these characters could probably already get along. They're probably already developed, but we need to have something else come up. And I think season 4 is really the worst season by quite a bit.
Oh, okay.
And you really feel it because I think it's almost like they heard like it's even more about bullying and more about like the show was already about bullying and like, you know, was already about like, you know, teen suicide and stuff, and it just gets really dug into it. And I feel like that is from the reaction of people being like, oh, it's done so well in season 2, do more of it. And I'm like, if it doesn't make sense, don't do it. So, and this character, like the main character of season 4, is not a character before then. Whereas the whole point of this show is like these characters are kind of always in the background, and now it's their season. Whereas this character was like literally not a character. And now is like a character, basically. Like you don't see him at all in the background, or like it isn't related to anyone. It's just like it feels so
forced,
disconnected is more the word I would use. It does feel disconnected from the rest of it, and it's like all these characters like come and rally, and it doesn't work. Whereas like
it's not a natural flow of things.
Like because the beauty from season 1 to season 2 specifically is that season 1 you think it's about Jaemin, it's not about Jaemin, it's about Jinyoung. And then season 2 does become about like Jaemin, but not exactly about Jaemin. And it's a very interesting feeling of like how Jaemin feels like a passive character in his own life, but it still is like you then see part of how he's trying to be more active and all this stuff. Like the relationship between Someng and Jaemin is like incredibly beautiful. I think the art is, I know the art's not great in the first like 10 chapters, it improves a ton. It's not great, but it's like you really see like it becomes a lot cleaner because like I think they get more comfortable drawing the characters. it's such a beautiful relationship. I think it's two characters that knew someone and now have to be connected through the memory of them. And I think there's a really wonderful way that this entire show understands how we connect with people from our own perspective, you know, how our own selfish perspective needs to connect with other people. I think that's really an interesting part of the show. And I really liked it. I did really like it. There's a reason I'm reading Seasons of Love Some despite it kind of feeling extra and not necessary, primarily because it's a lot about Jamin, and I really love Jamin. Like, Jamin is like, he's a really standout character in this, like a really, really standout character in this.
Okay.
And so like all the other characters are pretty good. And like, you know, I would say some of them are quite good. But Jamin is like, he's like a one of one. You know, he's like I wouldn't say he does anything unique or special, but he is done with such authenticity and such honesty of like, oh, he's a pretty boy, he should be this way, blah, blah, blah. But he challenges a lot of things and experiences a lot of weird downs and things that you wouldn't consider. And I think the way they live in his perspective is very good. And I think it's very wholesome and it's very cute. But if you aren't into like that part of coming of age, and it's really not a romance anime, like, or romance manhwa. It's like out of like 120 chapters, I would say maybe 30 of them are romance, which I know sounds
25%.
Yeah, it sounds extreme, but honestly, that's how it feels. Like there is a lot of the characters are in romantic relationships, or are seeking them, but it's rarely the focus of that.
Okay.
It's like part of it is like that's an aspect of their life rather than the main
that's what I
focus.
was gonna say. It's just part of the whole, you know, natural order of things, but not necessarily a focus point.
Yeah, because I went on a pretty big kick, and I'm still on a pretty big kick of romance manhwa. I would say I rate this about the same as Job Switch Log. Maybe I'll like Job Switch Log more when it gets more chapters. Job Switch Log is only like 54 chapters in, but I like both of them. They're both very. This one's a lot more in your face than Job Switch Log. Job Switch Log is like more subtle. So I would say I probably lean a bit more towards Job Switch Log because of that. But I do like the character writing in this a lot. Like I think it stands on business and it does honest things. And I think the way they I've not talked about this at all. The way they portray teen suicide is very real and very honest, and I think it's done very well. So that part is good. Like I think that part is like I think a lot of it is focused on always usually too much bullying, or too much about the circumstances and not about what they're experiencing or kind of the effects of it. I think the most beautiful thing about the show is it understands the effects of it rather than just the drum of
just talking about the context.
Yeah, the context, the events of it. Like I will always hate 13 Reasons Why, the show and the book, but really I hate 13 Reasons Why. I think it's one of the worst pieces of media ever created. I think it's truly horrible.
Yeah, because it's mostly and only focused on the action of.
It's not honest It's very much from an observer's viewpoint. It's very disgusting. I think it's one of the worst things ever created, truly.
Interesting. Okay.
But all that said, you should read it. I think if you wanted to a show that feels good but then questions you in certain moments, I think it's great for that. And I think if you are able to dig into yourself, it is worth it. But I understand people who don't want to read it for content reasons, and I also understand people who don't want it to read it because it's not a romance. It's kind of a coming of age.
Or if you're hesitant, maybe just bite the bullet and give it a shot.
Yeah, I think that you will be surprised by that the characters are better than they look. I'll say that much.
Yeah. With that intense topic, we go to a much more lighter topic, anime that I've watched. And there's a mention of death and how we perceive death as people in this show, but obviously it's not diving into the philosophical depths of the question at hand, and that's the anime called The Barbarian King and the Warrior Princess.
Oh, we're going to that one? Okay.
Yeah. So this show itself is like it's an okay show. It's your fantasy setting. It's slight comedy, slight action, slight romance, slight of everything. It's almost I wouldn't say it's a true like filler anime, but it's cutting close to it at moments. There's some sad 3D rendered moments through this show, which I do not enjoy.
Sad 3D moments, as in like this is like a sad moment and it's done in 3D.
I wish. It's sad because it's 3D.
Oh, okay. I thought you were saying like they did a sad moment and then they like specifically made it 3D, and I was like, that's worse.
And that is that would have been worse. No, it's just like, so this is a fantasy setting, obviously, and this is like two, not two kingdoms, but like a kingdom, um, and that kingdom having troubles with their neighboring tribes, I guess.
You're gonna have to be more specific.
Yeah, so
that feels like so many fucking fantasy shows.
well, it kind of is though. So the thing is, like, you have a, like, if we're pulling it from our life kind of historical context, you have a kingdom that's obviously much more like, when the writer was writing, it's much more influenced by like the Western countries and like the Franks and stuff like that, who are like actually kingdoms and empires of their times. And you have a similar situation here in this anime. And they're going through a famine, and like their land is dry, and they're trying to survive, so they're trying to expand their land. But to do so, they kind of start taking these expeditions to their like the outer territories of the region that's not part of the kingdom, thus go into war with their neighboring tribe living in those lands. But the story is that like this princess is basically one of the leading commanders of the expedition, because she like aspires to be this like woman knight and kind of lead other women into becoming knight as well, and kind of prove that it's not like only for men, and women are not meant to only like sit home and be their husband's lovey-dovey partners kind of thing. So, but then she loses a one versus one kind of fight. Like they get trapped by a group of barbarian warriors, and to prevent her men dying, she kind of offers this like one versus one duel. So that like people under her command can escape. Barbarians accept it. She loses it, becomes a hostage, but doesn't get killed. And like the barbarian kind of decides that he is in love with her because she's like a really strong person, and like kind of almost respects her strength and stance, and says like, I want to marry you. But like his conclusion is basically like making her fall in love with him through the time spent together. So it's an interesting show.
You said all of that, and
yeah.
all I got was that so it's a gimmick.
It is kind of gimmicky.
It's like it's the most classic fantasy of head up its own ass, talking about like all these details of why they're doing it. At the end of the day, what is the meaning and feeling of the show? It's a gimmick.
It is really
that's
gimmicky.
Like all I got was like,
regards.
that's a gimmick of like, wow, strong girl, strong guy. Whoa.
Yeah, it's like I do enjoy seeing two strong individuals, and like we have a lot of princess in distress kind of things already. So I do like the aspect of this show where they're like on equal footing finally.
We're not in the fucking 1900s. Oh my god,
exactly.
yes, amazing. We've done it.
Exactly. And unfortunately, we still follow that storyline.
There is still, but it's like
lot,
it's not like that should not be like a celebratory thing.
No, it's not a celebratory thing, but it's a reality of the situation we're in. And usually generic shows just opt out to go with that type of storyline.
Yeah, that's just like a 5 out of 10 whenever that happens.
Yeah, of course. Of course. I'm not like arguing that portion by any means. But with that being said, like the rest of the show basically evolves from this narrative where like she kind of explores the so-called barbarians lifestyle, and comes to acknowledge like they're actually much more in tune with nature and their surroundings, and much more caring towards it than what their kingdom's been doing for all these years. And there's more tropes where like she's actually from a bloodline that was from those lands back in the day. Yeah, which is only hinted so far, so we don't know what's up. But stuff like that, cheesy stuff, is there. It is a really light watch. kind of fun watch if you like fantasy stuff, like different species and things. Um, it is there. I do feel like there's a bit more elaboration on like how other kinds of beings live, like dwarves and elves and this and that. It's not just like, oh wow, elves, forest, pretty. Like they kind of dive into their city life a bit more than regular, which is nice and funny. But yeah, ultimately speaking, it's not crazy. One of the good points that I like about the show is that she comes to realize that their approach and their empire towards death is not necessarily the only approach people have towards death. It's again not that philosophical in the show, but it is a good hint for a good, um, you know, food for brain, I guess. It's an easy watch, like I said. It's nothing crazy. It's nothing you should by any means go out of your way to watch it. But for me, it was a really pleasant show that I've watched while eating food.
See, this episode format is going to give some insight to all of the people of the shit I have to put up with, of the amount of like fucking 4 out of 5 times I talk to you, it's like usually like you'll just mention some trash anime and I just have to like sit there and be like, right.
Valid.
And I'm just
yeah.
like here, like I started some new trash anime and like and I just kind of sit here and just like, oh God, how do
But
I
hey,
fix this?
I could be giving the war here, like fighting the fight here, being like, no, it's not trash. Like I do acknowledge.
Yeah.
Like,
first of all, this is probably not the worst thing you've watched, but it is like in the realm of like filler, right? So it's
yeah, I'd argue it's right in between because for a fact I've watched way worse stuff like than this, without a doubt.
you say that so proudly.
I do because everyone knows this. I stand proud by this like I guess quality of mine where like I'll watch any type of anime in terms of their quality. I do have a time that I enjoy almost anything out there. So
And I'm of the opinion we only have so much time on this fucking earth.
exactly. So like different perspectives, both equally valid in my opinion. But
Right.
like I said, if I'm eating food, I dig this.
Yeah, the difference is that I don't do this when I eat food. I watch something else.
Yeah.
That's the main difference. Is you watch anime whenever. I watch anime if I'm sitting down to do it specifically.
Yeah, exactly. Like anime for me, because we mentioned this in the way early episodes, but like I grew up with anime. Like in Turkish.
Well, I grew up in anime.
Yeah, but I'm saying like in Turkish TV, like we would open a regular cartoon channel and like a really decent amount of the shows would be anime shows by default, and I didn't know it was like anime to be specific. So like, a lot of shows that I sat in front of a TV eating my bowl of cereal was also like they happen to be anime. So, and they're usually not the most like highly written, like crazy intricate shows, the shows they play on TV. So I'm used to consuming anime like that, as well as seeking out quality ones and like watching those much more deliberately too. So, got my foot in both worlds in that regards. But again, this is by no means a show that you should seek out and watch. But if you do consume anime on your free time just to have it as a time passer while eating food or something like that, this is one of the better options to go ahead and see. But after this quote unquote trash recommendation, we have probably a better recommendation on Jared's end.
Well, this is not a recommendation. To be completely clear, anything that is seasonal, I don't necessarily recommend.
Yeah, we don't.
It's just
we
what I'm
don't
watching.
necessarily recommend these.
Even things that what we watch for the show, I don't necessarily recommend them. My forced watch, I kind of recommend a bit more, but not always. Regardless, Classroom of the Elite, one of the most popular shows in the world. Something we'll never talk about on the podcast for that reason. It is a school shonen show. It's very generic. I rewatched seasons 1 through 3 before watching season 4, and I did not finish season 4. I'm about like halfway through.
That's some decent time.
Yeah, it was a decent bit of time. It'd been like maybe a few years since I watched it, so I just forgot all the intricacies, and I was like, I should probably get through it really quick. To be fair, I was like paying like 80% to 70% of attention. Like it was not fully there all the time because I just was like, I know what happens. I just want to remember it and have it in the front of my mind.
Like if there's any details you forgot, you know.
Yeah. Like why is this character acting this way to this character? When did this happen? Shit. That's really all it was. So I was like, I wasn't like sitting down like paying attention fully. Like I would sometimes do it second monitor, etc. Regardless, it is just more Class from the Elite. It is a lot of the who, wah, ooh, wah. I'm going to do this thing because I'm cool. Like class, like, I'm a 17-year-old who for some reason knows how to manipulate everyone in the world. Like shit like that. I will say the difference between this and every other season is like it's finally become like the Ayano Koji Glaze time. Like where he's going to do everything cool and he's going to be so much better than everyone else. And like he's no longer holding back. And I'm like, the show was great because he wasn't doing that. Well, not great. The show was good because it was
because
not
he was just
doing
50%.
That. Yeah, he was like, doing that. And I think he's also a character with like little to no motivation. And now he has one motivation of just like, dealing with the person that they sent after him. And it's all just like, I don't know. I don't care. I think a lot about Ayano Koji as a character. And I think a lot of it is just about feel good power fantasy type stuff at this point. And I think there were interesting moments about kind of like, the nature of like education and nature of like, competition and all that stuff that was interesting in earlier seasons that I think has mostly dissipated through later seasons of Clash of the Elite, where it's like you can already see like a lot of the persisting characters are starting to fade into the background. There's introducing new characters because they want new antagonists and new feelings and all this, and I just
they're basically trying to keep the fire lit.
They're making it more linear over time. What was a more complex show, not that it was insanely complex, but a more complex show has become more linear because they want to get to a clear end goal in a clean, quote unquote, way. And I think that is actively hampering what the show could be. I've not finished it and I kind of already know where it's going. I know season 5's announced, but I'm not excited to watch it. Whereas like at least season 1/2, I was a little excited to watch it. And I think that's the big reason why I'm like Clash from the Elite. Also the arts, they made the lines lighter and it kind of looks weird. It's not my thing. I like harder lines just in general, but I think the general feel of Clash from the Elite has just been about kind of the like, oh, look at these cool mind games, interpersonal like shit. And like when one character's like dominating that, it doesn't really, I don't care. Okay. Like it just, that part becomes uninteresting. And it's like, I don't know, it feels like a Glaze session. And if you like Ayano Koji because he's like some sociopath who does whatever the fuck he wants, sure. Like, sure. Like that's never been the interesting part of the show to me. And I think that we're just going to end up in a place where it's just kind of like these characters are all secondary to Ayano Koji. Could be wrong. Hopefully I'm wrong.
So when you're talking about like, it's becoming much more linear and like right now it's basically an Ayano Koji Glaze. Because I do remember you mentioning, is it like, are we pretty close? Because just so everyone knows, I did watch Classroom of the Elite. With that being said, I've only watched the first 2 seasons, yet to continue through season 3 and 4. And do you think, like, are we at a closer end to the actual story? Do you think they're gonna?
I think there's like it's probably gonna go to like season like
6,
7 or 6.
Yeah. Change the order there.
7 or 6.
Go ahead and do that.
Because I think that season 5, I think they're gonna get to like year 3 and shit. And it also depends whether they're like, I think the light novels are at the end of either the end of season 3 or they're gonna move on, or not season 3, the end of year 3, or they're getting to the adult part of it. I don't know whether the adult part of it is ever gonna get made into anime. So I think that's kind of the question. Regardless, I'm not like, I don't care about Class of the Elite. I'm not like invested into it. I just kind of watch it when it comes out because it's a story I'm following. And I think that there are much better things you can spend your time on. But I think it is, if you've not watched a school shonen, they are fun. But if you've watched one before, unless you like enjoy indulging in it, or you've not watched one before, I don't think this is like the one per se. I don't think there have been many great school shonens, to be fair. So I just think in general, like, if you want to watch it, it's fine. It's more of the Class of the Elite, but slightly more linear. If you don't want to watch it, I think that's fair. There's definitely better shows, especially this year. There's a lot better shows this year than Class of the Elite season 4.
Yeah, I feel like, interestingly enough, which I was not expecting, there's a really good amount of strong candidates this season.
For anime of the year?
Yeah. Like, not necessarily anime of the year, but like generally having like a good overall quality for like a season.
Yeah, there's like a document I saw that was made of like averaging the My Anime list, which to be fair, My Anime list is not objective in any way, to be clear, but it was an interesting look at the numbers of like the My Anime list of the top 10 every year. What is that average score? And then the top 50 of that year, what's the average score? To kind of like quote unquote look at how good that year was.
Yeah.
To be fair, completely biased, not always like, it is not a great way of doing it, but it's an interesting way to look at it. It is not a good way of looking at it.
Yeah, you're at least looking at a bigger fan base.
Yeah, and I think what is interesting about this year is it's like, first of all, it's not, this is the shonen drought year, to be clear to everyone. This is a hard shonen drought year because also a lot of shonens are coming out 2027. A lot of shonens are ending, like My Hero ended. Trying to think of something else that's ended. One Piece is no longer happening right now. It's like going to the One Piece for 2027. So it's like stuff like that. Like a lot of shows are able to come to the forefront because of that. So I think that's interesting. And then I think there's always a bias of whatever I'm watching is kind of good, and so they'll rate it higher type shit because they're no longer just watching One Piece or whatever was ongoing shonen so far.
Yeah, no, there's definitely an effect on that.
Yeah, the space being more open is clear this year. Like you feel it.
Yeah, but that also, brings out more opportunities for us to actually see not the regular placeholders and hoggers.
Because the weird thing is like Jujutsu Kaisen was early this year.
Yes.
Usually it's a fall.
Yeah.
Like most of our shonens are fall, but like I don't think we have any upcoming big fall shows. And,
no, me neither.
And like I don't know, I think the big ones are like weirdly enough, like Blue Box is a big one. And then Ashi's a big one. There's a couple. I mean, okay, to be fair, there's like the isekai anime that are kind of big. Like ReZero is a big one. I know.
Yeah.
But
it already came out.
Yeah,
It's
but
not
like I'm saying,
necessarily
like the mainstream blow uppers, there's not a ton.
Yeah.
There's not a ton this year. There's no AOTs. There's no like Chainsaw Mans. There's nothing insane this year right now. So I think we are feeling the effects of that. So I think Classroom of the Elite is a show that gets a little bit of an extra bump because of that.
Okay, valid.
But I think it's whatever. I think you can skip Classroom of the Elite and you are missing nothing.
Yeah, I kinda agree. Like, again, like
it's not bad. I want it to be clear. It's not bad. I just don't think it's anything cool.
But I totally like kind of support the last conclusion you came to, where it's like if you like that setting and that world, that type of show, go for it. But it's not necessarily something in general that's gonna blow your mind.
It's an indulgence.
Yeah. Exactly.
There's a lot of shows that are indulgences. Classroom of the Elite is an indulgence.
Yeah. Like my watching when eating food kind of anime.
I think it's a little bit better than that.
No, it's better than those. I'm not saying that.
I think there is like
as in being
details.
an indulgence, like that's something you'd prefer to do and not necessarily be like a must if you're an anime fan kind of thing.
Yeah.
So my show after this would actually be something called Kill Blue. I think it's relatively out there.
Not the most I know people who are watching it, but
yeah, like there's the thing is nowadays if something's on Netflix.
Oh yeah, this is a Netflix show.
Yeah, it's probably gonna be known by more people than not, because there's a lot of people out there that watches their anime.
I think you'd be shocked
Netflix.
how many anime do get on Netflix that aren't that popular.
Yes, but the thing is, I'm saying like literally 50% of all Netflix users now watch one anime or another.
Yes, but I don't think there's an awareness of Kill Blue is like not popular. Like to be completely clear,
Not that okay.
Like
because I know some, like for example, and just to be clear, I'm not saying it's like you and I are polar opposites kind of popular.
No.
But like it felt like more people, like not a lot, but like more people than you're like Orb. Like no one knew about Orb.
But my point is that people are going to Netflix and they are browsing the top anime. They're not browsing further. Or they're going to watch specifically Apothecary Diaries, Frieren, like
Netflix
shit like that.
is pushing Kill Blue decently.
No, they're pushing it more than I thought, but that doesn't mean people are clicking it.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's a big, like I have not heard of anyone watching Kill Blue outside of
me,
people on you and people on Twitter.
Yeah,
like that's only the people. Like I know no friends that are watching it, so it's like it's not that popular. I also literally do not know the premise of Kill Blue.
I just
know it's edgy.
Yeah, it is kind of edgy. It's first of all, it's high school setting. It's comedy action, no romance involved. Thankfully, it will be weird because the premise is
oh wait, I do know the premise. Keep going.
There's this old assassin dude who's an underworld assassin. He gets bitten, if I remembered correctly, by a bug, like something like a wasp, but almost like a Spider-Man situation here, where it's like genetically like altered bug that bites him, and he basically goes back to his youth as like for his appearances, and he's trying to get back. He's trying to reach this specific like pharma company that does these, um, you know, what do you call them? Like,
Drugs.
yeah, drug researchers, and basically get the antidote to go back to the way he was.
But at the end of the day, this is just an action comedy. Like that's the main
Exactly.
thing. Like
That's
Sakamoto Days
yeah,
type
yeah.
shit.
So this is the main premise, but the way this works out is like the CEO of the company is basically unreachable. His only access is through this guy's daughter. And since he goes back to his looks when he was in high school, he's like, okay, like I'm gonna enroll into the school and befriend his daughter, and then make my way into their like company somehow, and like steal the antidote and like go back to being an assassin.
This weirdly sounds. This is not similar in premise at all, but in terms of how it will function, sounds like Full Metal Panic.
Kinda, yeah,
In terms of how it functions, it's like someone who's like, I'm a warrior and I'm in a high school, and it's an action comedy.
kind of. But the funny thing is, the comedy part of is that like, since this dude only grew up in the underworld since childhood, he never got to experience high school and stuff. So as an old man, he actually starts enjoying like doing homework and shit, which is a super old man approach to things. So that's
Homework is much better than taxes.
yeah, for sure. I doubt he was doing taxes to begin with
Sure.
either, but like,
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I know.
like the when you become an adult, you start to appreciate. Man, my struggles were really not that bad.
yeah, exactly. It's always that things we're like as kids we say like we want to be adults, and all the adults say back to us like, no, you really
No,
don't.
not that the pressures of being a kid aren't real, but
Yeah.
when you do take the step back and you are older, you're like, damn, I kind of wish I was just.
It's
doing
like how
homework.
much you're actually responsible for yourself.
Yeah.
Specifically,
It's like
kind of thing,
I I'm not like I pay my bills. Or like if I don't pay my bills, I lose access to water.
Exactly.
Like shit like that.
yeah. So, but yeah, with that being said, he's like, dang, school is actually kind of cool. So that's the comedy part, and then obviously there are like character dynamics happening there.
And I'm sure it's like random violence pops in the school, and it's like, whoa, what?
Random, well, yes and no. So to make this premise work, where he like kind of tries to befriend the girl, so the girl, she's always being approached by
She's popular.
every other guy in the
Yeah, so
school.
she's
Like she's
popular.
popular, she's beautiful, like she's smart, all those. She checks all the boxes, and she's from a very rich pharma household. So everyone's like, I want to date her, I want to date her, and she's like, I hate everyone. And she realizes our old guy, is not interested to her at the very least.
Okay, so it's that thing. Yeah.
Well, yes and no. She does not, as far as season 1, she's not romantically interested in the guy. Not that much, I guess. Maybe the last 2 episodes insinuated that. But more so that like they just strike a deal where she kind of benefits of him being his said boyfriend, so no one approaches her, and then he gets to chase the formula, but like she doesn't necessarily know that.
What did I watch recently that literally just did this? I mean, they do it in Horimiya. But
Yeah.
they do this all the time. I watched something specifically just recently that does specifically this, where it's like pretend to be my boyfriend.
Yeah, but it's exactly, so it's one of those pretense win-win kind of situations for these characters, and that's where the comedy comes in, because
You don't have to say more.
yeah, I'm not gonna. I also don't want to give that many spoilers, but like the way they incorporate underworld and other assassins start happening, and like he kind of tries to avoid his actual identity being revealed while trying to protect the school in a sense. So, kind of Sakamoto Day vibes over on that portion as well. It's okay. I'd say like comedy parts are relatively funny. It's by no means like this is we agree on this, but like Bocchi is funny.
Yeah.
It's not on that level to
Yeah.
be honest, but
It's funny for in a derogatory for an anime.
Yeah.
It is true.
Yeah. So, feel good action comedy, nothing crazy. Gives you chuckles.
Which is how I feel about Sakamoto Days.
Yeah, kind of.
I'm not a big fan of Sakamoto Days.
Yeah,
so.
I'd say if you enjoy Sakamoto Days specifically or shows on that realm, you'd probably enjoy this one too. Art is good, music's okay.
Yeah, it looked good.
Budget seems fine, interestingly enough. Though if we're doing like direct comparisons for the things that we're talking about right now, you and I are polar opposites is much better.
Yeah.
In terms of like music, art, all that stuff. But this is still good for purely being an action comedy, which I feel like
It's all more demanding.
Even in live action movies, it's a different thing to do a action comedy and something else.
Yeah,
So.
it's just more demanding to do an action.
But yeah, so with your,
I'm gonna rush through these last two honestly because this stuff has gone longer than I thought.
Yeah.
Friends with the second prettiest girl in class. This is the most generic romance anime you've ever seen. I watched it because literally I thought the female main character's character design was cool, and it is on the new wave of kind of like the more female-led relationship in that we're seeing a lot more in romance anime. Like there's a lot. Like another one is I think she's only talking going through me to talking to me to get to my brother, which I know horrible title, but it's like they're also both blue-haired in these two shows. But it's very much the the guy's the nervous one, the girl's leading it, kind of like that type of relationship, confident, they get together early, all that stuff. It's also love triangle-y, which I don't like. Not that I don't like love triangles, it's done poorly.
Okay.
I think the show has a good, honest relationship, and I think how they explore each other is interesting enough, more so. But I think the show in general is like the most generic. You've seen this a billion times, and you either are watching it because you want to enjoy that, and this is the reason I dropped it. I'm probably gonna finish it, but like I stopped watching it as a priority because it really is the same beats over and over again, and the character designs are nice, the art is pretty, and I think the music's pretty solid, but I think ultimately, if you've seen romance before, this is just another romance anime. Like, there is nothing new. It's shy guy with pretty girl who makes them learn about themselves, like, ooh, and crazy. Like, I don't...
So would you end up saying it still does justice to the early relationship portion?
I think it's pretty, like, I think the things they do with the actual relationship work, I actually think it's the character parts that are kind of generic and bland. Like, I think the mechanisms of the story are fine. I think the mechanism story that doesn't work is the forced love triangle, and I think the characters are interesting enough, but there's not a lot of detail and texture to them. It's more like if you like these characters, you'll like it, but if you don't like it, there's not a compelling reason. Like, you have to like them because of personal bias, right?
Gotcha.
Rather than actually good writing. And so I like the characters off bias, but I'm aware that I don't actually like the characters, if you know what I mean. Like, it's not like these characters are interesting or like they're honest, but they're not interesting. And I think that's the biggest takeaway is like, you can enjoy this show. I don't think you can get a lot out of it. Okay. And there's like, it's not bad. And to be clear, there are topics that are interesting enough to deal with. Like, I think the stuff with his mom is very good. Like, it's kind of like a mom who's stressed in a household and kind of, dealing with, the troubles of trying to teach her kid despite her not being, fully, put together herself. I think that's interesting. But overall, I'm kind of like, it's fine.
It's more like a snack anime for that genre.
Yeah. It's really much a snack anime.
Got you.
Speaking of another snack anime in the romance genre.
This is exactly, yeah. Smoking behind a supermarket. I started this show because I literally wanted a snack anime, I guess, which I did not expect it to be like literally. Like, first of all, the episodes are really close. When you take out the intro, outro, like musics or opening, ending songs, like I'd say on average, like an episode is like 12 minutes or so. It's super fun. It's cozy. It's nothing too deep. It's literally two characters getting to know each other and kind of, explore that like relationship, friendship kind of dynamic between them. There's some funny trope that's happening, which is like like the main character, he goes to this grocery shop very often every day because the cashier working at this shop, the other main character, is like basically his decompression or co-oping system with his fucked up company or like work life.
Yeah.
Because she always smiles and really happy, and then encounters the same person at the back of the grocery store with a totally different appearance and demeanor,
What?
smoking a cigarette.
No
But
way.
the funny premise is that like he doesn't realize she's the same person. So like she kind of plays this off as like them being like close friends, and so this guy interacts with them as two different people,
That's cute.
which is a cute dynamic. And like I said, the episodes are really fast. It's like 10-12 minutes shorts kind of thing. And I think like on Crunchyroll they actually like aired this as like season 1 minis.
Yeah.
So there's like 12 episodes, but all of them are short. And I think they're now releasing like regular season 1 where they compiled multiple episodes into one. I'm assuming 2. And from what I know so far, or what I'm assuming so far, they're just literally like 2 episodes compiled, released as 1 episode. I don't know if it'll be 12 episodes and give us even more context, but so far it's super feel good, really like in a sense kind of nostalgic because of the element of smoking, and then like kind of feel good.
As opposed to Chain Smoking Cat, which is everyone's
Exactly.
favorite talk of the town because no one's watched it, but everyone's seen it.
Yeah, exactly. And everyone choose to stop seeing it more
Yeah,
than
for
they
understandable
have. Yeah,
reasons.
exactly. But yeah, so it's nice. It's one of those shows that make you like, for me, you remember me talking about like Futari Solo Camp, like
Yeah.
solo camping for 2.
Yeah.
Like it's cozy, it's feel good, it's nice. And that's basically about it. Like
Can
it's
I-
good art, by the way. It's really nice art.
Yeah, can I
So,
just say we are in a vibes-based meta right now in anime, and I don't like it. Where everything is
Yeah.
like we're super prioritizing vibes over anything else, and I think vibes are important and vibes are great.
It
but
is.
like, my God, are all the anime that are like really highly
Really
mainstream
focused,
are
yeah.
like really vibes-based? Because this is like relatively popular.
it is. Yeah, I've heard it from multiple people myself.
People who aren't even anime watchers have brought it up
Yeah.
to me. It is very vibes-based, and it is important. That said,
I would
let's-
advocate for this one though before we wrap up, only because it's short.
sure, yeah.
But yeah, so
Well,
that's
let me be clear. Also, this is, I know a reality of like, middle-aged man talking to like 20-year-old woman. It's still creepy. Don't
It
get me
is,
wrong.
yeah.
Let me, and also was spoiled on where it goes, so it is creepy.
okay.
But not that creepy, but creepy in the context of it per se.
Yeah.
But let me just say that even if it is good, I people value vibes too high. Is all I'm saying.
No, I definitely agree.
Well, not
for
that vibes aren't
yeah.
important, but it is like people would rather have vibes than a good story, and I
No.
understand that. But like I think
No.
that's such a lazy way to consume media.
And it shouldn't be the mainstream by any means necessary.
Yeah, like I was shocked how well this did because I was aware of the manga before this. Like it was
Yeah.
on my list of like, oh, these are romance manga you should consider, and I was like, I didn't know anything about it beyond what the premise was.
It's also relatively popular in Japan too because it's literally
Shocking.
their lifestyle. So
breaking news, convenience stores.
like you're literally hitting it home run. Like
Yeah.
you can't, argue with that. But that's about it on my end. Just a quick mention that I'll wanna like do that I'll be keeping my eye on. And we talked about this. It's Sparks of Tomorrow.
Oh yeah, I think we'll probably at the end of the last episode
Yeah.
for like August, you'll see. We'll probably talk about some of the stuff we're keeping an eye on a bit more because I have a lot that
Yeah,
I'm keeping an
yeah,
eye
I'm
on.
on the same
and we'll
boat.
see what we get to.
But this one, I just want to throw it out there. I'm not going to talk about it other than beautiful art,
gorgeous art,
gorgeous art. But
like rare art.
yeah, exactly. And multiple styles too. But I'm watching it probably weekly, which is not something I do a lot. And if you all want to kind of have at least one show that we'll talk about in terms of seasonals, at least myself, this is going to be one when it wrap up, so you can follow that. Yeah.
Yeah, who's the studio that's doing it? I think I know who it is. It's KyoAni. That's what I thought.
KyoAni,
Okay,
yeah.
I just wanted to make sure. I was like 90% sure it was KyoAni, but I'm like, that's the reason why. Fucking KyoAni's amazing, and they don't do enough
For our Japanese title, folks, it's called Seiki Denki.
I will say people shit talk it because it's like, oh my god, like, it's oh wait, this is not the one I'm thinking of. Sorry, I was thinking of another anime. Regardless, Sparks of Tomorrow looks very good, and I will probably watch it at some point. But that said, we are
At
finished.
the end,
Somehow took us this long. I could see us doing more of these type of rambly parts. I think our rambly sections in this podcast style make a bit more sense because I think it's a lot harder for us when we're focusing on one show to talk about some random side tangent unless it's really related to the show, like rambling about Frieren or structures of stories and all that stuff. I think is a bit harder to do when we have a topic we're trying to get to specifically. That said, I didn't expect this to take like over an hour. So, but yeah.
So we're at the end. See y'all at our next episode, which we'll be talking about
my forced watch of I Want to Eat Your Pancreas.
Okay, let's go. See you later.
Later.